everybody, and welcome to this next episode on my YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about critical infrastructure and offer a high-level overview of what constitutes critical infrastructure in the United States. One of the best discussions I've seen on this from an observer, if you will, is this definition of what is critical infrastructure from a gentleman by the name of Ian Bogost of The Atlantic. And basically his definition is infrastructure is everything you don't think about. The roads you drive on, the rigs and refineries that turn fossil fuel into the gas that makes your car go, the electricity that powers the street lights and lamps that guide your way. All these technologies vanish into the oblivion of normalcy. I really like that definition. It's really good. In 2020, I was reviewing some documentation from the Department of Homeland Security and found these listings, if you will, of different quantities of critical infrastructure. And it was actually pretty fascinating, just to give you a sense of the size and scope of critical infrastructure and key resources in the United States. I'm not going to go over all these numbers, but it gives you a sense of some of the statistics, if you will, or the sizes. So let's look at dams. 84,000 dams in the United States. Obviously, that runs from the small dams on a stream up to Hoover and Grand Coulee. Emergency services, 87,000 U.S. localities have emergency services. Over 4,600,000 career and volunteer professionals. In the energy space, we have 450,000 miles of high voltage transmission line. Government facilities, 361,000 U.S. government owned and operated facilities. Postal and shipping, 31,324 U.S. post offices. Public health, 6,200 registered hospitals. And of course, telecom, 307,000 cell towers. Transportation, 19,000 public airports, 140,000 route miles of major railroads, 600,000 highway bridges. In water, we have 53,000 man-made lakes and 16,000 municipal wastewater treatment facilities. As I was doing research for my book on critical infrastructure, the first place I could ever find a government policy discussion on infrastructure was in 1983 document from the Congressional Budget Office. Here's a listing of the different infrastructure verticals identified in this document, but they didn't call them critical infrastructure. It was just infrastructure. You can see highways, public transit, wastewater treatment, water resources, air traffic control, airports, and municipal water supply. Fairly narrow range of different verticals or sectors versus what I just showed you a moment ago. 1996, the Clinton administration had an executive order that was issued on critical infrastructure protection. Probably the first time you'll see the phrases of critical infrastructure. Their definition was pretty narrow. It says, so vital that their capacity or destruction would have a debilitating impact on the defense or economic security of the United States. Again, fairly narrow. Included telecom, electrical power, gas and oil storage and transportation, banking and finance, transportation, water supply, emergency services, and continuity of government. Later on in '98, there was a Presidential Decision Directive, PDD 63, from the Clinton administration. And they had another definition, physical and cyber-based systems essential to minimum operations of the economy and the government. There was no list of critical infrastructure sectors, but the table on the next page will summarize essentially what was Appendix A of the document. By the way, I'm going to mention a phrase called CIKR. What it really stands for is critical infrastructure and key resources. Here's a table that was built after reading the Clinton administration PDD. You can see we have critical infrastructure sectors, information and communications, banking and finance, water supply, transportation included aviation, highways, mass transit, pipelines, rail, waterborne commerce. Justice and FBI was covering emergency law enforcement services, etc. This list will change substantially over time. 9/11, of course, was the massive attack on the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. It also raised awareness amongst the government to basically realize that critical infrastructure was subject to attack from terrorist threats. So in 2001, the Bush administration issued Executive Order 13228, establishing the Office of Homeland Security, a precursor to the Department of Homeland Security, and the Homeland Security Council. In this document, there was essentially a listing of the sectors that were being addressed for critical infrastructure. So you can see this is some themes, common themes here: energy production, telecom, nuclear material, privately owned IT systems, special events, which was the first time this had surfaced, which was relative to things like the Super Bowl, transportation systems, food, livestock, agriculture, and then this is the last part, which was, again, a terrorist-focused perspective of chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, explosive, or other related materials that can be potentially used in a terrorist attack. 2001, the Patriot Act surfaced. Title 10, they had two-page discussion about critical infrastructure and key resources. And they also had a definition, which, again, this definition is really pretty good. Critical infrastructure means systems and assets, whether physical or virtual, so vital to the United States that the incapacity or destruction of such systems and assets would have a debilitating impact on security, national economic security, national public health or safety, or any combination of these matters. 2002, there was a national strategy for Homeland Security established. It was really, again, kind of like a new, nuanced way of looking at critical infrastructure. In this particular document, they listed out these different sectors and what the lead agencies assigned were. So you can see we have agriculture, food, which was separate now, water, public health, emergency services, government, which included continuity of government and continuity of operations, defense industrial base, information and telecom, energy, transportation, banking and finance, chemical industry and hazardous materials, which again was a focus because of they're worried about the terrorists getting this material for explosions, attacks, postal and shipping, and national monuments and icons. Now later on, you'll be seeing that the postal and shipping and national monuments and icons are no longer carried after the Obama administration. However, one of the reasons why it was included now is that postal and shipping have been used for some terrorist attacks using anthrax mailings to Congress. Also, the national monuments and icons, a perspective there was that if a national monument was damaged or destroyed, that would be a psychological impact on the United States. Of course, 25 November 2002, DHS was created. They started publishing documents about, again, critical infrastructure. What is it? In 2003, they had a strategy where they added a few more categories from the ones I just showed you, including nuclear power plants, dams, government facilities, and commercial key assets. But their focus was on the terrorist threat. That was still the main focus. was not an all hazards approach, which you'll see coming up during the Obama administration. I just mentioned is that later on in 2013, after these earlier publications from the Bush administration, there was a new recognition to all hazards versus just terrorism. So for instance, a hurricane is not caused by terrorism, but would be a major impact on critical infrastructure. So the idea is to really look at all hazards such as weather events. Terrorist attacks still count, but other aspects of impact on critical infrastructure. So 2013, the Obama administration finally came up and said, let's do all hazards approach. And it means a threat or an incident, natural or man-made, that warrants action to protect life, property, the environment, and public health and safety. Included for all hazards, things such as natural disasters, cyber incidents, industrial accidents, pandemics, think COVID, acts of terrorism, sabotage, and destructive criminal activity targeting critical infrastructure. And this is the final list of critical infrastructure, which is still in play today. So that was 2013. We're now in 2023. So it's about 10 years, but it hasn't changed much. It hasn't changed at all. So chemical, commercial facilities, communications, critical manufacturing, which also includes things like rare earths, dams, defense industrial base, emergency services, energy, financial services, food and agriculture, government facilities, healthcare and public health, information technology, nuclear reactors, materials and waste, transportation systems, and water and wastewater systems. What's missing in action from this list is both postal and shipping, which I talked about earlier, national monuments and icons. And then in my research on looking at other countries and how they approach critical infrastructure, I did notice that the UK includes space as a critical infrastructure, which of course includes all of space-related things such as communications facilities, launch facilities, and so on. This says under discussion at DHS. I haven't seen any recent information published about whether or not it will be included as a new sector in the critical infrastructure. Thanks for watching this recent episode of my channel, and with us talking about the introduction to critical infrastructure in the United States. Future episodes will be talking about a lot more details on critical infrastructure and how it came to be, as well as what else is included. In the meantime, please like my channel and subscribe, and we'll see you in about a week. Bye.